Greetings, everyone, and welcome to FBIRS tutorial number 6. Last week, the focus was on SAS dashboards and SAS data workflows. But today, we're going to be focusing on taxonomic data. So this is really the finest scale biodiversity data that the FBIRS deals in and serves, pure taxonomic biodiversity data, and we're going to be looking at some of the different ways that you can search and access these data, and also at some of the dashboards available for visualizing and packaging and distilling these data as well. So without further ado, let's launch into it. So you can explore taxonomic data in a few different ways. One way is by filtering, perhaps querying a portion of the data on FBIRS by specifying a particular spatial and temporal scale. So you can do that using the search bar here. And let's just say, for argument's sake, we were particularly interested today in fish data. Let's just say, I'll zoom in here a bit so you can see more clearly. Let's say we're interested in the recent fish data records. And from a spatial perspective, we're particularly interested in the Cape Fold freshwater ecoregion. So we could then hit search, and you'll see that based on our specified spatial and temporal filters, we get returned fish data for the area of interest, and you get a quick breakdown of the number of records, the number of sites, but you also get a list of all the different fish taxa for which there are records in that area and within that time period. And then by clicking on taxa, you actually get this drop down, which shows you not only which taxa were found there, but how many occurrences there were for each of those taxa and how many site visits are associated with one of those taxa. And then if you wanted to drill down further into the taxonomic dashboard for one of these taxa, you can actually click on the taxon, and what will then happen is an overview dashboard will come up. So if I zoom out, you'll see here the overview dashboard has now appeared for the species that I selected, Clarius garipinus, the sharp-toothed catfish. All right, so the overview dashboard contains, at the top, some basic details about the species, the taxon name, full scientific name, also contains the common name, sharp-toothed catfish, and it tells you the number of occurrences, the number of sites that the species was found in. Then the next thing you get is a quick breakdown of the origin, endemism, and conservation status for that species. So you can see it's a native species, its endemism category is widespread, and its conservation status is least concern. Next up, you get a link to the IUCN page for this species. And just to point out that on FBIRS, the conservation status that you see associated with each taxon is actually derived through a direct link to IUCN, the red list categories for all of the taxa that are available. And you can click on this link to actually see the species page on IUCN for that taxon, and that gives you a little bit more insight into the conservation status, the distribution, the ecology, etc. of that taxon. Next up in this overview dashboard are images of the species, and you can see here various sharp-toothed catfish images. These probably mostly come from iNaturalist. So FBIRS has a link with GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, and from GBIF it pulls in not only data uploaded from research institutions, but also citizen science data via iNaturalist, including research grade records, and that's what you'll probably be seeing here. Then at the bottom of the overview dashboard is another button that says Open Dashboard, and that actually takes you to the detailed dashboard for this taxon. Right. So this is what the detailed dashboard looks like for any taxon on FBIS. It's the same whether you're looking at it for fish or frogs or invertebrates. It's essentially the same dashboard for taxon. Let me just walk you through this starting on the left here. So first up, you get, once again, the scientific name and the common name and a distribution map of the records for this taxon. In our case, it was specified by a particular spatial and temporal scale as well. You then get an overview of the taxon, including its scientific name, its common name, its GBIF ID, in case you want to look up this taxon on the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, and you get to see the number of records in your search, and you can also download a CSV file of the raw data of those records by hitting this button over here. You can then see where your taxon sits within the broader taxonomic hierarchy, from kingdom right the way through down to, in our case, species. Then if we go up to top right here, is a breakdown of the occurrence data. Let's zoom out a little bit for this taxon. And in this occurrences table, each line actually is a separate site with its own site code, its own river name, and its own number of occurrences for sharp-toothed catfish. See that most of these sites just had one record, but there are a few here where the species was recorded more than once at that site. We then scroll down. The next panel gives you a histogram, sharp-toothed catfish records over time. And you can see that in this part of the world, they first appeared on the scene in 2007, but they've been recorded most years since then, and as recently as this year. You also get, as per the overview dashboard, a visual breakdown of the origin, endemism, conservation status, and again, that link to the IUCN page, the images as per the overview dashboard. But then one thing that's a bit different here is there's also the metadata table at the bottom of this dashboard. And this is essentially a reference list. These are all the source references behind all the data for this taxon that are displayed on FBIS. And this is a great way to really drill down into the origins of the different data points for different taxa. And in this case, you can see that in our selected slice of data, most of the data in FBIS were from databases and also some data from a peer-reviewed scientific article. I'm going to close the detailed dashboard and go back to the map, the main map interface, and just use this little arrow to reset my filter settings. Now, the next thing I'd like to show you is some of the flexibility that there is for doing taxonomic searches in the search bar. And I think we'll now move over to invertebrates as a bit of an example. And the first thing I'd like to do is just type in the name of an order of invertebrates. And I'll use Ephemeroptera. And I can just type in the first few letters. And it's actually a smart search. So it gives you those options based on what you've typed in quite quickly. Then my spelling lets me down once again. There we go. And so you can see, if I zoom in here, that for Ephemeroptera, it returns actually two different tabs. And the difference between these are actually two subtly different results that it's returning here. And they have different taxonomic ranks. A taxonomic rank just means, the level of the taxonomic hierarchy that taxa is at. And so the first one, the taxonomic rank, is a taxon for Ephemeroptera. And what this means is that this represents all of the records that were actually identified as far as Ephemeroptera, in this case, just down to order level, so quite broadly. So the taxonomic rank was at the order level. And if you were to click on here, then FBIS would literally just return all of the records on the platform that were identified as Ephemeroptera. On the other hand, if we come back here to our search bar, if you look at the second tab where the taxonomic rank is order, this actually will return all of the biodiversity records for all of the different taxa that fall within the order Ephemeroptera. And you can see that here. There are a lot more records, a lot more sites, and you can see all of the different mayfly taxa that have data on FBIS. And you can see that some of these data are available at genus level, like Acanthiops, and then some of them are at species level, Acanthiops irrepens. And as you scroll down through here, you'll see that some of the data are at family level as well, which is quite common for SAS data. And there will also be some order level data as well. And once again, you could click on any of these to go into the overview and detailed dashboards for those particular taxa. So closing that search, just like I've done here, a search at the order level, you could also do a search at another level of the taxonomic hierarchy. Why don't we try a family of mayflies? Type in the first few letters, and once again, B to D comes up. And you can see, as per Ephemeroptera, there are two different hits that FBIS returns. There's taxon, so these are literally the records that were identified to the taxon of B to D at that broad family level, which is quite common for SAS assessments. But then there are also all the data within the B to D family, and that will comprise genus and species records, as well as the records associated with that family, B to D, which is included. And at the finest scale, you could actually search for the genus. See there, the genus Betis pops up, or you could go all the way down to a species level search as well. I'm going to close these now and refresh my search bar. And next up, let's have a look at some annurin data. And just before I do this, I wanted to point out that for adult odonates and annurins, the FBIS actually links with the BDI, where there's citizen science data that are pulled in from the Biodiversity and Development Institute. And these are very rich data resources. And what I'd like to do is maybe just do a search for a species of frog and show you one of the benefits of linking with this platform. So let's search for a common species of frog. All right. So we've searched for the Cape River frog, and you can see, not surprisingly, there are a lot of records for this fairly common species, and nearly 2,000 sites. And then we can access the taxon overview dashboard. And as we saw for fish, there at the top are some basic details about the species, its scientific name, its common name, and a breakdown of the occurrences and sites, as well as their taxonomic rank. But what we have here is the BDI link. So this actually links to the species page for this taxon on the BDI webpage. And by clicking that, it'll take you directly to the page for that species, which is a really rich resource, both in terms of visuals, the images of the species, but there's also a wealth of information on things like the habitat, the behavior, the conservation status, etc. for that species. Right. So if we come back to FBIS, you could then, as we did for other taxa, browse down through the overview get a feel for the origin, endemism, and conservation status, you can check out the IUCN page for this taxon. And as we did for fish, you can open up the detailed dashboard and drill down into the raw occurrence data, look at the metadata table, etc. All right. So I think that pretty much covers today's session. And I hope that gives you a bit more insight into what FBIS offers in terms of taxonomic data and taxonomic data searches. And next week, the focus is going to be on CSV data downloads. And this is really dissecting the finest resolution of data available on the FBIS through actually downloading the raw data and all the associated attributes with the biodiversity data that FBIS provides. So thanks very much, and look forward to seeing you all next week.